What's going on, y'all? Today we got Legend of Winning is Wrong, breaking down LeBron James versus Luka Doncic at 23. Doncic. Doncic. That's how you say it, right? Yeah. Doncic. Or Doncic. Let's get into it, y'all. Last reaction at the end of the video. Stay tuned.
Oh, who better? 23-year-old Luka or 23-year-old LeBron? Chill.
Who's better? 23-year-old Luka and 23-year-old. So 23-year-old LeBron. That would be.
That's 8.
That would be 08.
Come on, Lo.
I think
Before
that's
before the defense really start kicking in, who's better?
James. I think so.
Boy.
Luka doesn't defend. Luka wants to get back to the basketball. Luka plays with the basketball.
I gotta look at the
He doesn't
stats.
know
I
how to play
don't got
without
none of the
basketball.
stats.
His entire game is predicated on him being the primary ball handler.
You just mentioned it's LeBron. That's LeBron. You just described LeBron. That's LeBron. That's LeBron in 23. You just said the
I think LeBron was better off the ball, though. At 23, LeBron was better. No, listen to what I'm saying.
How would you ever know that? How would you ever know that?
Well, Lo, Ron might not have ever known the answer to that question truthfully, but I possibly have the answer for you. Honestly, I probably have the overarching answer that everybody wants to know. If you guys are familiar with the player choice panel, you will know that this topic has been really the buzz around YouTube and TikTok pages. It has many people talking and really questioning, is 23-year-old Luka Doncic better than 23-year-old LeBron James? And from the recent episode of the panel, Lo has been the main advocate for Luka Doncic being better than LeBron James that year. And Bob, Chilltown, and LeBron just couldn't fathom the thought of Luka being better than that version of LeBron. But is it really that crazy of a statement? Well, before I go more in depth, I would love it if you guys take a quick second to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and notification bell to keep you guys posted. And now let's get right into it. Firstly, I wanted to bring up both of their prior years and then see what happened in the next year before I start the verses between them. LeBron James in the 06-07 season led a pretty much lackluster supporting cast to the NBA Finals on his back, and unfortunately got swept by the San Antonio Spurs.
I'm saying though.
The next year made some fine tunings in his game to get even better. Luka in his 21-22 NBA season started off pretty slow for his standards, but picked it up in the second half of the regular season and led the Dallas Mavericks to the Western Conference Finals to lose to the eventual NBA champions in the Golden State Warriors in 5 games. And Luka so far into this year has also made some fine tuning in his game to get even better. There's 2 things I'm noticing between these 2 players. First, I would say they both led pretty much lackluster supporting cast to deep postseason runs when the expectations for both of them weren't expected to do so. Second, they both got better going into their next seasons. Now, this still isn't answering the main question, but I will get into that soon. Firstly, let's cross-compare their stats just to see what we're working with. First, I made both the points, rebounds, and assists per 75 possessions just to see how they would look, since this is comparing 2 players who played in essentially 2 different eras of basketball. LeBron James in the 2008 season averaged 29.7 points, 7.8 rebounds, 7.1 assists, with a 56.8 true shooting and a plus 2.8 relative true shooting. Luka so far this year is averaging 33.7 points, 8.6 rebounds, 9.0 assists, with 60.7 true shooting, and has a 2.6 relative true shooting. Now, judging off these numbers, they look very identical, but Luka takes the edge, and if you base it off just these stats alone, you would come to the conclusion that Luka is better than LeBron James when he was 23 years old. However, as we all know, basketball isn't strictly a production or mathematic problem to tell who's the better player. You have to look at the film as well to better help you find out who's actually the better player. You have to use your eye test. Let's first look at the scoring for both of them, and let me start with LeBron James. LeBron, although his true shooting and points per game were lower than Luka, he was more efficient scorer relative to their era. In fact, LeBron James in the 2007-2008 season was the most efficient 30-point per game scorer that year. As we all know about LeBron James also, he's an athletic freak, especially in transition. He could get to the rim whenever he wanted, and it seemed like whenever he would catch the rebound in the same instant, he'd be down the other side of the court throwing down monster dunks in a flash without any trouble. His speed was very evident on how he can zip around the court at his stature just made no sense, and he combined that with his inhuman strength just bullying guys out of the way once he got near or at the cup. And he still possessed a very good ball handle to navigate going up the court. These are just few of the many factors for why he was such a dominant force in transition. And it didn't matter if he was the one to bring the ball up the court or when he was attacking from the slots, when he's attacking those helpless defenders backpedaling. It would pretty much be a guaranteed bucket, basically trying to stop this locomotive from getting to the rim. Honestly, there just wasn't a true game plan to stop LeBron at the time. All you had to do was wish and pray he would miss on his own. It was mainly the same in the half court, but if he was placed in isolation sets and the side was clear for him, if you didn't have an extra body to throw at him at the game, it could get pretty ugly for you, and more times than not, you're going to lose that game. I also don't want you to think it was just all strength on these drives. LeBron had very good agility and changes of direction that he could do on a whim. He had a nice crossover to cut back and clever spins to throw off the defenders. And if he so happened to get to the defense when LeBron got there, well,
move.
That's where he could show off that strength and just move you out of his way. By the numbers, it would say Luka and LeBron are closest finishers that year, but I don't think so, mainly because of the athletic differences between the two and how LeBron has just that gear of, for these next 5 to 7 possessions, I'm going to continually get to the paint and force the defense to collapse on me, which really made the difference between Luka and him for me when it comes to their finishing. Now, for as good of a finisher LeBron James was at that point of his career, he still had a very glaring weakness that Luka just doesn't have, and that's a reliable and consistent jump shot. LeBron wasn't a good mid-range shooter, especially during that time, and he was not a good three-point shooter either. So teams, for the most part, would pack the paint and play a little off of him, daring him to shoot. And even though this tactic wasn't always the best, because LeBron James would still have his way, but we really saw how much of an impact that had on his postseason productions. His numbers might look good, but his efficiency definitely took a hit, especially to LeBron James' standard. When you watch the series against the Celtics that year, I would say one of the biggest reasons why they couldn't get over the hump was because of LeBron James' lack of shooting. The Boston Celtics, for the most part, on ball screens, would go under and play drop coverage, or would play a high drop, and LeBron couldn't make them pay with the 15 to 7-foot team jumpers, which really put a dent to the Cavs' offense. Luka Doncic at this point, I'll say, is just a far better shooter than LeBron, and he actually provides floor spacing. Going under the screen and playing drop against Luka, I would say is the best coverage you can play. Him being a very good pull-up shooter is going to force the man defender to play over the screen or force the second pick-and-roll defender to play higher on the ball screens, while also being a far superior post-up scorer in comparison to LeBron that year. So even if Luka's having a bad shooting game, he can go to the post and score that way. And as I stated earlier, Luka isn't as good of a finisher as LeBron to me, but that's still value he also brings there because he's still really good at that too. Both of them at 23 years old, I would say Luka Doncic is just a better scorer, just because of the versatility he brings as a shot creator and what he brings at 3 levels in his scoring. As playmakers and passers, they're both so close that I genuinely believe it's a coin flip. So who do you want is between you. And as offensive players, I'd probably take Luka Doncic, but this is a point of contention that I would like to bring up. Luka's actually a far more ball-dominant player than LeBron. LeBron is very heliocentric just like Luka, but Luka right now is doing it at a completely different level. Luka average time with possession is 9.9, and unfortunately we don't have the numbers for LeBron in the 08 season, but LeBron in the 28 season, where I'd argue he was actually more ball-dominant, his time of possession was only 6.7. Not only is LeBron less ball-dominant than Luka, he was more willing of an off-ball player too. He was a
that's a fact.
cutter, and that adds
because Bron is of athletic. I'm saying he can go back, do a catch a hoop real fast.
However,
we know this.
Also, at this point, creating more shots for his team. He's also going to be producing more points for his team than LeBron. However, even if you eventually concede that Luka was the better offensive player, there was one point I feel like Lil was downplaying, and that was their defense. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a firm believer that sometimes someone's offensive value can be so great that it outweighs a person's value they give on both ends, and it could possibly be the case here. But LeBron James, who I don't think he was an elite defender that year, but he was more than just a neutral one than how I believe Lil was trying to frame it. He was still a nice rotator off ball, was a great communicator defensively. He still had great instincts and anticipation at the time, and he was still very solid on ball and very mobile. I'd say that's enough to at least qualify you as a positive defender, more than what Luka's giving you at this point with a pretty decent gap. overall, I think both of them at 23 years old is pretty close as players to me, and it really comes down to what you value more.
Nah,
LeBron
yeah,
James
that's
is
a
going
fact.
to run a heliocentric type offense, not as ball dominant as Luka, but he'll provide you some solid value off the ball with backdoor cuts, while being the better finisher, ridiculous transition scoring, and he's going to be generating more points at the rim and collapsing the defense, while still adding positive value defensively in a tougher defensive era. While Luka is the better shooter, shot creator, better in the half court as a scorer, which at this point you can argue he's the more superior offensive player. And so far into both their respective careers, Luka just been the better playoff performer too. So at the end, Luka at 23 versus LeBron at 23 is a very fun conversation to have. And choosing who's the better player, I do believe shouldn't be viewed as A, it's a bad choice to choose the other, or B, think that both players aren't close is a slight to either player if you choose the other. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button to show.
Let me know who y'all got. I think I got, me personally, I'm gonna take Luka, bro. Honestly, bro. Bron out here not being able to shoot right. Like in this era, I'm taking Luka because you can't be out here not being able to shoot. You can't be out here not being able to shoot nowadays, man. It's gonna hurt the team badly, man. I understand Brown was just running through, you know what I'm saying, running through it. But still, bro, I need a jump. I need a little jumper, you know. If y'all enjoyed this reaction, man, make sure you click on the last reaction on your screen right now. Turn on post notifications. Tell me which one to react to next, man. I'm out of here.